Hello folks, I'm Stan, WB2LQF, and this is my newly constructed Sideswiper. I wanted to build a Sideswiper that was somewhat traditional but appealing, and one that virtually any amateur operator of average talent with an average workshop could duplicate. And also I wanted to build it in such a way that if you didn't want to build it exactly the way I did, you could substitute some parts. And I think I've accomplished that project goal. I'm not sure how much it weighs, but it weighs enough. To begin with, the base is a piece of zinc. I'm an former Navy radio man, and so I was very happy, very pleased when a friend of mine, Tony, W1Z Mike Bravo, gave me a piece of zinc that just happened to find its way into his sea bag upon his separation from active duty during the time of the Korean War. Zinc in the military, and actually in the civil boating also, is used as a sacrificial anode. And that means that whenever you put two dissimilar metals in the salt water, current's going to flow. And zinc is essentially, its job is to sacrifice itself because it corrodes a lot more quickly than steel or brass. So I had this piece, and I drilled a couple of holes in the bottom of it so that I countersunk those holes so that I could use two wood screws to attach it to the wood base, because no matter what kind of wood you use, a wood base is never going to be heavy enough to operate a Sideswiper without holding it with the other hand, and that's not always a lot of fun. Now let's talk about the wood that I used. This comes from South America, Central America, southern Mexico. It's called bocote, or bocote, B-O-C-O-T-E. And it's a rather expensive piece of wood, but you don't need very much. Okay? The nice thing about it is that it's a very oily wood. So essentially, it's pre-finished. A light sanding and a couple of nice coats of some sort of a wood wax, and you're set to go. No screwing around, worrying about polyurethane or varnish or whatever you might want to finish it with. You don't have to. A couple coats of wood wax works just great. The finger pieces, they're also bocote. Now I could have cut them out of this dowel, okay, that I purchased for its obvious purpose. But instead, I located someone who was in the business of making buttons, believe it or not. And they were willing to make me a button that was 1 inch in diameter here, with or without a hole in the exact center. I chose no hole in the center because I glued them on. And I've got some pretty nice finger pieces here, once again, with a wax finish. This dowel is a 3/4 inch dowel, and since I was using a hacksaw blade for the blade arm, we'll talk about that in a bit, I simply I sawed all the way down about 20 millimeters with one hacksaw blade, and then I added another one into my hacksaw and drilled down 16 millimeters. Okay? Why two hacksaw blades? Well, because in my experience, I've built a few of these in the past, the traditional hacksaw blade for a Sideswiper works pretty well. However, it still has a little bit of chatter and a bit too much over travel for me. But I doubled two 32 teeth per inch DeWalt hacksaw blades after I cut them to 110 millimeters in length, and I riveted them. One rivet through the original shop hole here, and another rivet through an 1/8 inch hole that I drilled right about here, it's 44 millimeters from here to here. Okay, so I've got a double thickness blade arm. That means I've still got some over travel, and you want over travel in a Sideswiper, okay, because you don't want to come to a dead stop. Yet it doesn't chatter, so I can adjust these contacts very close, which means less arm movement and a whole heck of a lot more comfort in operating it. Okay? If these contacts look familiar, They come from a Vibroplex original. I happen to have a couple in my junk box. If you don't have them and you'd like to do something like this, sometimes you can pick up a parts-only Vibroplex key at a local ham fest. You can still buy these things direct from Vibroplex online, but they're pricey because you have to pay for just about every single piece, including the 2 silver contacts, which was a nice addition, the free silver contacts. This is 3/8 inch wood here. This is a 1/2 inch piece of zinc here, and it gives me just about the right kind of height that I want for operating. Like I said, it's heavy. I can operate this thing all day long without worrying about it scooting along on the desk. In fact, I've got 4 soft rubber feet that I mounted. They're stick-on feet only, and it doesn't move. I don't even have to have a piece of that plastic stuff, whatever they call it. You know, the kind of stuff that keeps carpets from moving or dishes from moving in your cabinet. I don't even have to have a piece of that stuff underneath on the desk. Last thing is, every time I've ever built a key, I've always ended up with the connecting cable, and it's always a pain in the butt whenever you want to store the key, put it someplace else. So I decided I was going to use a stereo 3/8 inch jack right here. Alright, and it's simply glued to the front. Okay, I clipped off all the lugs except for the tips in the barrel. The tip is just soldered right to the very edge of the hacksaw blade, and the barrel, that wire goes underneath the wood base where I routed out a little channel, and it goes all the way back, and the channel routes back this way and over to here, and I simply wrapped it around the mounting bolts for both of the dot contacts, and so I got the connection there from here to the tip. Alright, I think what I'll do is I'll go back into the shack, I'll connect it up, and I'll demonstrate it for you. But it was a fun project, easily duplicated by anyone, and I don't want to brag or anything, but I've ended up with a pretty neat little key that doesn't move around. It didn't cost me a whole lot to make, and most important, at least to me, is a key that I'm quite proud of because it looks really neat, especially with that wood wax finish. Sort of like it's renewable throughout its lifetime. Okay, let's go see how she works, okay? Okay, back with you folks, here in the shack. Now we got a Sideswiper to add to our collection. Here we got a McElroy Deluxe, 80 years old, and my favorite key, a KN4YB paddle. Don't use it too much because I love my bug. However, it's an awful good key, I'll tell you. And here's our subject of interest today. All right. So it works to my satisfaction, and I apologize for the sexy low lighting in my shack. Somewhere up there is a TS 890S, my Christmas present. 73 from Stan, WB2LQF.